Welcome to the Diary of a Side Hustler podcast. I'm your host, Kayla Brooks. Let's get into today's episode. Whether pursuing a passion project or passive income, over 40% of Americans have a side hustle. The Diary of a Side Hustler shares the personal stories of small business owners who turned their passions into an opportunity for profit while balancing life, multiple jobs, and everything in between. Today, I am joined by Hannah Pleasant, who is the founder of Vegan Bake Shop. Hannah had a split adolescence in both North Carolina and Kansas. As a tall girly and a fashion lover at an early age, her early career aspirations were to create fashion-forward shoes for women beyond traditional sizing. This passion took her to studying at the Savannah College of Art and Design, where she received her Bachelor of Fine Arts in Fashion Marketing and Management. She then started her career as a footwear designer. But once the pandemic hit, she found herself jobless. Undeterred, Hannah sought her guidance counselor and did a skills assessment and discovered that she might be good as a pastry chef. She didn't hesitate at the revelation and pursued the path. With a love for sweets, a dairy intolerance, and a bougie alter ego, she birthed a business idea, Bougie Vegan Bakery. She swapped the fashion world for the foodie scene and now bakes delicious vegan treats. Her business recently underwent a rebrand and now goes by Vegan Bake Shop. Vegan Bake Shop is a virtual dessert shop that specializes in vegan and allergen-friendly goods, available locally in Charlotte, North Carolina, and for nationwide shipping. Hannah, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Kayla. That was awesome.
Well, firstly, super excited to have you here today. And just to break the ice and get started, when you were younger and someone asked you, what do you want to be when you grow up? What did you say?
So for me, I loved the baby stories on TLC, Wedding Story, and all that. So for some reason, I just loved the babies, wanted to deliver the children. So I was like, I'm gonna be. I didn't even know it was called OBGYN, but I was like, I want to deliver babies. That was it. That's all I cared about. I wanted to be a doctor and deliver the babies.
Okay. Did you ever pursue that?
Absolutely not. We can't handle blood. We're not good at math. We're not good at science. Like, nah, that was never a path for me. No, not by any means. By middle school, my friend was like, you know what they do? Check, coochies all day. And I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah,
I'm good
yeah.
on
Not
that.
my vibe.
I'm good on that. Yeah.
Not my vibe.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Okay, cool. So tell me then, how did you actually get into I want to do footwear, design footwear?
Being tall, young, for
How tall are
me,
you, by
I'm
the way?
5'9".
5'9".
But for me, like I grew really quickly and then I just stayed there. So I've kind of been the same height since like middle school.
You've been 5'9" since like middle school.
Yeah. I mean, I might have grown like a little bit in college, a little bit, but other than that, like I shot up quick and just stayed there. Everyone else may have caught up, may have passed me, but for the most part, like we were just tall. Just
Same.
tall. But the thing is like I know people that are taller than me that have smaller feet than me, but for some reason I got a size 12. So
Size
for me,
12.
size 12, girl.
Did you have a size 12 in middle school?
Yes, yes. So the struggle was so real because it's like I want the cute shoes too, and
Hmm.
oftentimes you go to DSW, you go to Nordstrom, the selection was just so limited. It was just ugly.
To be a kid in size 12 for sure.
Mm-hmm.
So what were you wearing? Do you remember what kind of shoes you had?
Oh man, I remember Sperry's were
Okay.
quite the
Sperry's always been
thing.
inclusive though.
Sperry's, I had quite a few colors in the Sperry's. I had some really cool Converse sneakers
Okay.
too. That's what I can mostly remember. I don't know about anything else. Like sandal wise, I don't really remember that too much. I mean,
Mhm.
I might have been able to finesse an 11, get it in there,
Yeah, it might have a little bunion on the pinky toe.
I, oop, oops. But yeah, so I mean, for me, the lack of variety and then they weren't fashion forward in the
Mhm.
style that bothered me. And I was like, I wish there was more, options for people with bigger sizes because I can't walk into a store and get my shoes. Like I have to order online. That takes time. So I'm like, if my luggage is ever lost, it's a problem.
Yeah,
I'm not
yeah,
going into the store.
yeah, yeah. It's a wrap.
It's a wrap. Like somebody got to have some flip flops on deck for me because that's all we gonna be able to fit. My mom, she's 5'5",
Okay.
so
So how did you end up being?
well, my dad, he's 6'5", and
Okay.
I take after his side.
Okay.
So genetically, like I'm just built like the aunts on his side. Like you know what I'm saying? Like were just taller women,
Stallions.
fuller stallions. I ain't never been skinny, but we were slim, full bodied. Like
Yeah.
that's the women on that side of the family. So I passed my mom a long time ago with the shoes, so she saw it too. And in general, like my limbs are long, so the pants needed to be longer,
Yeah.
the sleeves. She's like, I just got some big kids. Like they got these long limbs, so they just need specialty, clothing. And then her big thing was like, if you're already gonna stand out like that, make sure your clothes look good. Like you're already gonna be
If you gonna
catching
step,
people's
step.
eyes. You know what I'm saying? So like, look the part. So yeah, she was well aware of the struggle and they were really supportive of, the mission to and the passion behind that. So I appreciate them for that.
I feel that. I feel that. I'm
Hmm.
5'7", and I've also been 5'7" since like middle school.
You get it.
Yeah,
You a
yeah,
stallion too.
yeah,
Five,
yeah,
seven and
yeah.
up. Okay.
Stallions in the back.
Come on. Come on, Stallies. Yes.
Okay, I love that. I love that. Did you know anything about designing shoes, or you were just like, I don't want this to be a problem?
No, I knew nothing. I took art classes, but I didn't know like I said, yeah, I want to be a footwear designer, but I had no idea what that path looked like. So for me, my mother was really instrumental in helping to like do the research. She's a big researcher. So she was like really trying to help me like figure out where can you even go to school to do that. And so both my parents were very supportive of that. But that's really where it was like, okay, like, yeah, you want to be a footwear designer. How do we make that happen? Where do we find the type of education to even do that? So when I was in North Carolina, my art teacher, she loved SCAD. She knew of it and she was like, oh, that's an
Scat for people who
amazing.
don't know.
Oh, my bad. SCAD is the Savannah College of Art and Design in Savannah, Georgia.
Talk
I am
heavy.
a B alum, proud B alumna. So yeah, SCAD was where I ended up going to school, but my art teacher there at the time, she was like, "Oh my gosh, like SCAD is amazing." And so when I moved to Kansas, the art teacher there, they were kind of familiar with it,
Okay.
but not as much. But all they had to say was like, "Oh, it was so expensive" and all this other stuff. But
Okay.
when it comes to art schools, like SCAD is definitely one of the top for
Okay.
sure.
I feel like school is expensive, but definitely probably art school.
Oh yeah, art school is on another level for sure. There are a lot of international students. It's yeah, it's crazy.
So you said that you were in Savannah and North Carolina. Like, where do you claim? Where are you from? Where were you at the time when you was like, hey, I need to go to school? Like, did you move specifically to go to school, or like, how did that work out?
Yeah, so at 14, left North Carolina, was in Kansas, finished out high school there. So at
What
the
made you go to Kansas?
time, my dad's job. That's
Okay.
why we left.
What'd your dad do?
So he was retired football player, and then he got a job coaching with the Chiefs. So we had to move out to Kansas, and I moved after my freshman year in high school. So
Okay.
yeah, that was not fun. But I mean, some of my best friends are from Kansas, so I'm like, at the end of the day, my longest relationships, like childhood wise, are from my friends in Kansas.
Okay.
So I'm not mad at the outcome.
Okay.
But at the time, it did suck. I'm not gonna hold you. And it's not a place I'd go back to. But I will say that it helped me in terms of like preparing for school,
Okay.
getting ready for college, and all that.
Okay, cool. So tell me about the journey of like getting into school and figuring out like, okay, this is what footwear design looks like. Like,
Yeah.
do you have any memories that stick with you more than others?
Oh yeah. For me, art school was it was really eye opening in the sense of I didn't know what to expect, but the workload. People think that art school is like a breeze. It's not. Don't
Okay.
don't let them fool you. Like
Put
art
us on game.
school,
What y'all be doing?
it's demanding because with projects they take a lot of your time. So for us, one, it was nice because we had the quarter system, so we had really long breaks, which was nice. But the thing is like your classes were like 2.5 hours.
Each?
Yeah, so you only had like so many classes in the day, but they were 2.5 hours, and then on Fridays you didn't have any class, so that was like dedicated time to work in the studio, whatever you needed to
Oh,
do.
okay, interesting.
So it's just it takes a lot of your time, a lot of late nights, projects. Sometimes you can underestimate like how long it's actually going to take to complete it. Sometimes you're doing group assignments, but for me, being in footwear design, initially my major was accessory design,
Okay.
but I hate sewing. I always hated sewing. So I don't really know how we thought we were going to get around that, because sewing fabric is one thing, but sewing leather is a totally different thing. So for me,
So accessories was like purses and
Yes,
stuff.
so accessory design consisted of purses and shoes.
Okay.
Jewelry is its own, that's a whole other thing. That's like a
Okay.
totally different majors, dealing with metals, completely different. So for me, I learned probably within a couple classes, I said, "Oh no, we about to drop this." I said, "I can't do this." It was so demanding. And then I also felt like I didn't get the support that I needed from the professors. At the time, I was like, I told the dean, I was like, "Yeah, I'm gonna switch majors." And he was like, I mean, you're one credit away from minoring in accessory design. You might as well just finish that out and then you can, major in fashion marketing. So that's what I did. Ultimately, I'm like, I still want to be a footwear designer. However, I'm not going to sew to get there
Okay.
because I'm not here for that.
So you gotta know your strengths and your
Exactly.
opportunities is what they call it.
Exactly.
And
Exactly.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So graduating college, did you have a job offer lined up?
I did. So I had probably two internships within my time during college, like the summers after sophomore year. And so the way the job started was it was actually an apprenticeship
Okay.
initially. And so the team that I was apprenticing for, they already had their assistant designer. The main HR lady, she loved me so much. She's like, "Oh, we're gonna find a place for you. Like, don't worry. Like, once the apprenticeship is up." So a role opened up, and I was able to become the assistant designer for another brand. It's completely different environment. The manager that I had, I won't even hold you. She stressed me out. I mean, like, I had heart palpitations from the stress.
Okay.
It was rough. I'm not even gonna lie. Like, it was really rough working with
Okay.
her. I won't even lie. I mean, I learned a lot learning how to work with difficult people specifically, but it was not this pretty, oh, I'm in corporate and, footwear design is, it's all
Were you designing
bliss.
shoes at the time though?
I didn't take full control by any means. It's not as creative as school kind of made it. I feel like from a corporate standpoint, it's all about what sells. So whatever the customer like, it's the average consumer that you're
Hmm.
appealing to. So it's like those avant-garde designs that you're creating in school. That's not reality. You're not doing that in the real world for corporate by any means. So I felt in some ways I'm like school taught us one thing, but I'm like, in reality, you're not doing any of that. So it wasn't as creative of a field as I thought it was gonna be. So I felt like a little disappointed by
Hmm.
that, but at the same time, I felt like I still got a good grasp of like why the industry is the way it is, and in terms of like why they don't really carry extended sizes because of the costs involved. So that all made sense to me, but it was discouraging to see that it wasn't as creative as school kind of made it out to be.
Did you ever find your solace in like, oh, I want to have extended sizing available readily?
I feel like it's funny because there was a couple women in the office who also we all had like a size 12. And when I would talk to them about it, they would just kind of be like, I mean, they kind of hinted on the side of like it's really expensive and low key almost impossible. That's kind of the rhetoric that was there. But I feel like even though they may have felt that way, I feel like at the end of the day, like it takes like one individual to like really fight for it and push for it, you know? And I feel like now we're seeing more of it. Like I see Steve Madden doing a little bit more for one, and they did not do it. They probably went up to a 10, maybe an 11. But I feel like that movement has only really more so come because of trans community, not because of women solely
Mm.
that wanted a size 12, size 13, whatever the case may be. Like it took I'm not shading or anything when I say this, but I'm like it took a man to take that step forward if that makes sense. So
Mm.
that's kind of how I see how that kind of happened.
Yeah.
It's crazy what it takes to finally unveil and push and actually have that acceptance of all bodies are not the same.
Yeah.
And we're not all shaped in this cookie cutter world. Like some of us got a little meat to us.
Boop.
So and that's just what it is. So
Okay, so question for you. Were you baking at all like in this time between college and working for this job?
if I was baking, it was like I'm home for Thanksgiving, I'm home for Christmas, I have a little itch, but I mean, my apartment in New York, it was so small, like I wasn't really doing anything for real. So for me, it was mostly like when I had the space to do it, that's when I was creating or, following a recipe from my aunt, stuff like that. But it wasn't like it was for fun. It was kind of like to me cooking and baking was therapeutic. Like it was just
Mhm.
like it's a way to express my creativity in a sense. So,
Okay, I
mhm.
love that. Who taught you how to bake, or where did you learn how to bake that it became like this outlet for you?
I think well, my mom was a big dessert person. She
Okay.
she does not like dessert like that anymore, but back in the day, we probably had a cake every week. There was a cake from
And she baked it?
she baked it. Yeah, so her grandmother, my great grandmother, they would use like the Duncan Hines box and they would use the socket to me cake as their base to, without the cinnamon or whatever else is in it, but they would use that as their base for cakes. So that was like the one thing I learned. But then my aunt on my dad's sister on his side, she would bake from scratch. And so I learned how to make her red velvet. Red velvet is my dad's favorite cake. And so I learned how to make her red velvet, her pound cake, her Coca-Cola cake. So when it came from scratch, like that's who I learned like kind of the first like recipes, whereas my mom was like doctored up box. I mean, it was still good,
It's still
So
creative,
yeah,
yeah.
exactly. But like that's probably like my earliest memories of baking.
How old were you?
Probably young. I mean, when I started getting in the kitchen, I was probably like 7 or 8.
Oh, okay, yeah, that's
So,
pretty young.
I mean, I didn't know I was gonna be able to go in the kitchen at that age. So for me, I was like, oh, okay, we can cook now. That's fun. So that was just experimental for me.
Okay,
So, mhm.
that's what's up. Okay, so tell me about what happened to the point of you're in this job in the industry that you went to school for to now you've
Yeah.
lost your job. Like, how did we get
Whew.
there?
Mm. So top of 2020, I remember feeling like I remember I just prayed to God and I was like, I need a long break. I said, I don't want to be sick, but I want a long break. And I think at that moment, I was tired of the like hustle and bustle of New York, the grit, the grind. I was over what I was doing. I don't know that I was looking for something else work wise,
Okay.
but footwear was no longer, it wasn't fulfilling me anymore. So I remember March of 2020,
Just a big time in the world.
the big time we got slammed. New York City got slammed. And at the time, I believe we were able to work from home. And so I was going to stay in my apartment in New York. And so a friend of mine who lived like a block away, she's like, yeah, I'm going home. She was from Singapore. She's like, yeah, I'm going back to Singapore
Because of COVID.
because of COVID. So I said, well, she's going to Singapore. What am I doing staying in this New York City apartment? So I went home to be with my family in Kansas. Whole family's there. I get furloughed. Once I got furloughed, the stress of that, because I didn't know what that was, sent
Define what
me.
is furlough by
I
definition.
believe, girl, don't get me lying. I believe it's like you're on a break, but you're still getting. It's not unemployment though, because I remember like you still get paid, but like the point is to bring you back. So it's like you're off the job for some time, but eventually you come back. You may or may not, so, I don't know, like, I still don't really know what furloughed
Okay.
really means, to
You
be
know that
honest with you.
I
I
was
felt it though, okay? We felt the stress, and in that stress, got COVID, sick as I've ever been in my life, wouldn't wish it on anyone. No one in my family got it, thank God, but I did get it, and so and honestly, I remember earlier that year, I was sick on and off, to be honest with you. I'd came back from China probably end of October, and I kid you not, like, I was like the doctor didn't know what was going on, so COVID was probably on, in the States, whatever the case, way before
you
2020,
brought
for
no, I'm
real.
joking.
Low key, no, someone said that to me on Hinge one time, they're like, "You brought COVID. You came from China, you brought COVID." But anywho, so during that time of furlough, I'm like, man, like I need to get a job. I need to find something else. And I remember, all the racial riots were happening, and I didn't really like how the company I worked for. I didn't like how they responded. Now all of a sudden we know the CEO has a black son. We ain't never known he had a black son before. Now you got the convenience of a black son now. So I'm like, what is going on? So I remember I told my manager it was leading up to conversations about bringing us back. And so he was like, I told him that I was good. I'm not coming back. And so he's like, "Are you sure? Like,
You weren't coming back
maybe."
to New York or to
I,
the
s-
company?
I said I wasn't coming back to the company. That's what I told him. I was over it.
How did you get to this decision that, like, you know what? Furlough?
Yeah, I know, right?
Quit.
I was like, because I think leading up to it, I kind of felt this sense of like, I don't think footwear is for me anymore. I was beginning to feel that like, I think I'm good on footwear. I was beginning to feel that, but I didn't know what that was, what that looked like. No idea. And so for me, I remember talking to my god sister. I'm like, yeah, I'm quitting. She's like, no, you're not. So that you don't do that. Don't quit. I was like, "Ah, okay." So I call him back. I don't know the time span. And so I'm like, okay, I'll come back or whatever. He's like, oh, great. A couple months later, not even, we get let go in July. But this is the crazy thing. Prior to that, I had already planned to
Mhm.
leave New York City. So during this time between being brought back and then getting, we're working again, I had already scheduled the movers because
Okay.
my lease was coming up in the
Mm.
summer of 2020, like August. So I was like, well, in my heart, I don't feel called to stay in New York City. I just knew I didn't know where I was going. I had nothing lined up. I said, but I don't feel called. And so I had already lined up the movers way ahead. Price was right. You know what I'm saying? Because that
Okay.
was planned well in advance. And so I was like, well, I'm leaving regardless. So if we working from home, whatever you want to do, we doing remote. I'm not gonna be in New York City, so y'all figure that out. So prior to being let go, because I didn't quit, I had a thought come to me. Because the brand that I was working on, it was always kind of like intrepid water. Not gonna lie to you, we all had multiple managers. There was a lot that came and went. So it was like, well, what if you lose your job and then you get unemployment?
Mm.
So that weekend before the meeting of getting the news, a team member from China messages me. She's like, "Hey, did you hear they're stopping production for the brand that I worked for?" And I was like, "Oh." And mind you, that was like confirmation
Yeah.
because like Lord already told me like, he
Get your
he told
unemployment,
me like,
sis.
yeah, like you're about to get that unemployment. So I was at peace with the decision. I knew. I was like, "Oh." I told my manager like, "Girl, we about to lose our job." So I already knew. I already knew. And so going into that meeting, I remember the day that our director told us, I was in my robe and I was like just smiling. Like there was just this peace. And I remember feeling like I don't know what's next, but I was like, I just felt at peace. I just knew that everything that I was feeling leading up to the moment, prior to, didn't know the direction, I was at peace. I knew it was gonna be challenging leaving New York City, coming back to Kansas. I did not want to come back to Kansas. So for me, I was like, man, like this is different, but I was like, I'm at peace about it. And so for me, I was like, well, let me just find another job. I'm not trying to go back to Kansas. Let me find work elsewhere. But obviously during the pandemic, it was rough. It's still rough. That's another story. But it was really challenging because there was so much uncertainty during that time. And so people really didn't know like what the job market was looking like. So I did not get a job right away like I wanted to. So during that time, I remember my mom was like, "Why don't you just like stay here?" I'm back home, moved. And so I'm like, I gotta get out. I gotta get out of Kansas. We gotta go. Because for me and my friends growing up in Kansas, we knew there was nothing there for us as black women. We're like, what's here? Nothing. The brothers ain't checking for us. You know what I'm saying? Like the diversity's lacking. Like there's nothing here. So for us, leaving Kansas was like some people making it out the hood. It's
Mm.
not that it was rough, but it was just like there's no opportunity for us.
I feel that.
So for us, we were like, we went to school out of state, and when we leave college, we're not coming back. And that was the goal. So it felt like a setback to be like, oh man, I gotta go back to Kansas.
Mm.
Man, like it felt like a setback in every sense of the way. So during that time, my mom was like, why don't you just figure it out? So basically what happened was I was like, well, I'm seeing jobs on LinkedIn for digital marketing.
Okay.
So I'm like, maybe I'll pursue digital marketing. I said, I don't know what that is, but I'll look into it. I'm like, I'm seeing a lot of
Fashion
jobs.
marketing, digital
Sure,
marketing. There should be
sure. There's
something.
something, right? So at the time, there's a really great community college there. And so I enroll in their online course to be like digital marketing. I don't think it was like a degree. I don't really remember. It was something. And so I enrolled in that. I didn't like it. I felt like the professor, he didn't really give me feedback in a way that was constructive. I feel like it was because I was older, I had went to art school. So to him, I feel like he felt like I was good, but I'm like, no, I'm not, because like this is a new arena for me. So I'm like,
Mhm.
no, I actually need constructive feedback, because like I don't understand. So during that time, one of the classes, it was requiring us to go to a career fair. And so prior to that career fair, you had to work with a career counselor. So the career counselor at the time was like, we got to make a functional resume for you. And I'm like, what is that? I don't know what that is. So I worked with her so much because I was so lost in like, what does this mean?
I just always thought I was gonna do fashion.
Yeah, and so I wasn't expecting, any of this. So working with her was really instrumental, because I felt like all the quizzes and stuff I did in the past with footwear, even though I didn't love drawing, I hated the sewing, I felt like I always focused on what can I get better at? What are my weaknesses to improve upon? I never focused on like the strengths that I had. And so I feel like through all the tests that I did with her, really honing in on the strengths, that brought me to the career path of like, okay, what about pastry chef? Something in that culinary field. So even though like the cooking was something I just did for fun, I never did anything with it. To this day I still don't really write down recipes when I'm cooking. It's just like you just feel the flow.
Both chef, pastry chef, culinary,
Mhm.
and fashion design, they're both creative disciplines.
For sure.
Do you remember what skills or qualities that your guidance counselor found in the assessments that was like pastry
Mm.
chef?
There were so many tests that I took, but some of them were really detailed, and I don't remember what it was specifically. I think, because to be honest, all the careers were kind of creative. Graphic designer, even fashion designer was on there, but it was like, I already did fashion
We're
design.
not going back.
We're not going back. We're good on fashion. But for me, the cooking really piqued my interest, because I was like, I already do that. But I never took it seriously. Like my friends, like when I would be on Instagram posting videos, they'd be like, Hannah, like, why aren't you doing something with
So you would
this?
post videos of yourself cooking.
Yeah, I'd be like, I'd call myself Chef HP when I was cooking, and I would call myself Bougie Crocker when I would bake. And so
Mm.
people would be like, what's the recipe? Like, can you share it with us? And I'm like, guys, I don't think you understand. Like, I don't measure, so I can't give you the recipe.
I'm on vibes.
Yeah, so it was just, this is just for fun. Like, this wasn't really something that I
It was
was
serious
doing.
fun though enough that you were like taking videos and posting.
But I'm like unserious most of the time.
Seriously unserious.
Yeah, yeah. So for me, like, it was like, just I'm just messing around. Like, here's a video of my picture of my plates. You know what I'm saying? I would do that, but it wasn't, I didn't think anything of it.
Okay.
People were impressed by it. They're like, oh, you should do something with it, but I didn't think much of it. I will say that. But I will say, in the back of my mind, I always thought of like after footwear design, I said I would open up a restaurant, brunch, lunch spot. But when I said it, it was just kind of lofty, like it may or may not
Seriously
happen.
unserious.
Yeah. So I was like, yeah, whatever. But that's always what I did want, because I love brunch. Did I see the way food has taken me now? No, not at all.
Okay. So you do the assessment, you see all these things on the list, and you're like, oh, culinary. What
Hmm.
do you do next?
So I remember during that time of the digital marketing, I believe I had started like a YouTube and Instagram. I called myself Bougie Cook, and I was attempting, and
But
I
you were
say
just being unserious.
very like I was attempting very much, trying to give the people these recipes, trying to learn, and I was like, I don't like this. I'd rather just do it for you. This is not my ministry.
Okay.
It's one thing to like be able to cook, but to be able to like teach, like, oh, this is how you do X, Y, and Z. That's just kind of different. So at the time, I was like I said, very much attempting to do recipes or whatever the case may be. It was very short lived, but I also remember doing like some cakes, and people were like, "Oh, do you ship them?" And at the time, these were just regular baked goods, and I was like,
What's regular baked goods?
regular as in eggs, milk, butter.
Okay.
Right, we're still dabbling in that. And so, okay, I'll look into it. So at the time, my cousin convinced me to be like, why don't you call it Bougie Baker or something like that? Like, use the name Bougie or whatever. So I was like, okay, listening to her. Family friend that was vegan, they were like, will you ever do vegan cakes? And I said never.
Really?
I said never.
Why did you say never?
I don't know. I thought it was too complex.
Mm.
I'm like, I don't know what that tastes. Well, I take that back. I did know what it tastes like, because I did have a really good vegan cake in New York City. However, I didn't think I would be able to really be able to tap into
Be
that.
in that market.
Yeah, I didn't see that. So I'm like over here eating my words, talking about never.
Mhm.
So basically, what happened was I'm in the digital marketing. I'm trying to do the whole YouTube, but I ended up dropping digital marketing.
Okay.
I was like, this is not for me. And so the following semester, they were starting the culinary courses back again. It was to be in a program for Get a Pastry Chef certificate. So the way that worked was you had to take prerequisite courses. So you'd take like fundamentals of like cooking, baking. You had to take a serve like food safety, serve safe class. So all those things you had to pass and then get admitted into the program. So
Okay.
that's what I was working towards. And I did get into the program, but ultimately I decided not to. One, because during those classes, I was developing the vegan recipes because I remember we made some flourless chocolate cakes, rich in butter.
Mhm.
Tore me up.
Really?
That's the day I stopped eating dairy.
Really? How'd you know it was the butter?
Cause it's flourless cakes is literally chocolate, butter, and eggs.
Okay.
It's not eggs. I'm good on the eggs. Chocolate ain't nothing going on the chocolate. There was so much butter in that junk. Like I was when I say my stomach was hurting for like a week. I
Wow.
cannot make this up. And that was the day I stopped eating butter. I was like, "Oh, okay. We can't eat butter anymore." Cuz I was
At all.
at all. Like I was off of cheese. I was off of milk.
Okay.
I stopped that in
For
college
any reason particular?
because it would make my skin break out.
Mm.
Hormonal breakouts. It's not worth it. Like the stomach pain I can get by, but if we're talking breaking out, dealing with the hyperpigmentation, no thank you.
'Cause that don't go away overnight.
Exactly. That's like 6 months to a
Yeah, yeah. You
year.
can't put toothpaste on that
No,
one.
no. You gotta really like if you can afford some lasers, cool. But I'm like, it's not worth it for the skin reaction.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
I can deal with the stomach pain, might be a week, you know, but the skin, that's gonna last way
This is
longer.
the money maker.
Yeah, I'm like, we can't have that. So for me, I'm like, it's not worth it. So the butter was like the one thing, because butter is so delicious, full of flavor. There's nothing like butter. Nothing like butter. So for me, I was like, I can eat the butter. That's not bad.
Mhm.
But when I had an abundance of it like that, I said, oh, we can't do that. So what happened was during my time in the courses, during the class, I had my chef instructors, I had them try my vegan recipes, and they were like, that's good. Like, they were like, you don't even need to do the program. Like, you should just start the business. And that's exactly how that kind of segued into me not doing the pastry program, but actually starting the business. Because the reality is that everything they would be making, I wouldn't be able to eat. So it was like, yeah, you would have gotten an instruction, but it's like, what good is it if it's not vegan?
Yeah.
What you substitute, it's not the same. So it just wasn't as worth of an investment as it would have been to just start the business.
Interesting.
Hmm.
So, what made you be like, "Hey, Imma start my own business," versus, "I'm gonna go cook at an existing bakery or partner with someone who already does something vegan?"
For me, in Kansas, it was limited from a standpoint of the opportunities for the vegan. And I think for me, I was very set on vegan cake specifically. One, because I love cake. But two, I felt like I didn't really see it done in the market the way I envisioned it.
Okay.
So for me, I was really inspired by Milk Bar. I don't know if you've heard of
I
them.
have heard of Milk
Yeah,
Bar.
so Christina, I think her name is Tosi. She is the founder of that, and she ships cakes nationwide. So for me, I was really inspired by that because I was like, you don't see vegan cakes shipped nationwide like that. But then on top of that, I didn't want to stay in Kansas. I was like, we're gonna focus on shipping. But also at that time, a lot of people were doing online shopping. It
Yeah.
wasn't People weren't really back in person anyway. So that's like really what prompted me to even.
Mm.
I started with the shipping before I did the whole in-person selling, being at the farmers markets, like doing pop-ups, because it was still COVID.
So, you're in Kansas, you're now trying out these recipes. Did you have anyone taste test for you? How did you get to these are the ones? Like, this is the
Yeah,
one that I'm gonna put on the market.
I mean, my family is very honest for one, and then on top of that, I would have the family friend who's vegan try it, and I would also I remember sending samples to my friends too. Some that were actually vegan. I think most of them were actually vegan for the most part. And just to get their feedback and opinion
Okay.
and then just continue refining and tweaking from there
Okay.
because I felt like it's a challenge texturally, but also I had the premise of making it allergen friendly, so I didn't want to include any peanuts or tree nuts. My brothers are allergic, so I always knew for them growing up it was hard. So I didn't want to have any peanuts or tree nuts in the product. And then soy for me also unfortunately makes me break out too. So I was like, well, we're not gonna have soy in it either. So all those things really inspired me because I was like, I could have just made a dairy free product, but I felt like I would have stopped like myself short because it's like that's such a small
Yeah.
group. Like vegan is so much bigger because it encompasses those that adhere to the lifestyle, but also people that are actually allergic to eggs too. So that was just like, it was a no brainer. It wasn't about jumping on a vegan movement because it's trendy. It was like, no, like this just makes sense to do it that way.
How did you figure out the shipping situation? I know you said someone asked like once, but I imagine it's more than just Google or search how to
Oh,
ship. How did you figure it out?
most of it was though,
Oh,
because
really?
yeah, so for me, one of the things that was important to me when it came to the whole shipping, I was like, I don't want to use styrofoam. Coming from the footwear industry, I know how much waste that as with fashion in general is. So I was like, if I can do somewhat of a part, I don't want to use styrofoam because styrofoam's it's not recyclable.
Right.
So I was like, I want to find an eco liner, something that would be do the job insulation wise, but also be good for the environment. So it took a lot of research because some companies won't work with you if you're small and you
Mm,
can't get a truckload of stuff. So I was able to find this company where they use corn and it dissolves in water. So it's outlined in plastic that's recyclable,
okay.
but then the insulation itself is dissolvable.
Interesting.
And you can like it's dissolvable, compostable, like you can burn it, whatever the case may be, but it literally rinses in the sink. Like and it
Interesting.
just disperses. So that was really important to me. But I did a lot. I'm a big researcher.
Okay.
So for
From your
me,
mom.
yeah, I guess she passed that down. Yeah. So for me, between one, I would buy people's products, see how they did it, but then also I would study other brands and see how they
Okay.
went about it as well. Like little glimpses here and there. Not that they were showing like here's how we, package step by step. It wasn't like that, but it was like in between I would see okay, someone in the background whatever doing what they're doing. Like I'm a big researcher, so it
Oh,
took
so
some
you
trial
were
and
like
error.
zooming in and being
Yes,
like, "Oh,
ma'am.
what's she doing in the back?"
Screenshot all that. I'm the
Okay.
FBI baby. FBI, yeah.
And I love that for you. I love
Mhm.
that for you.
Mhm.
Okay, so you got the packaging down, and then that was it. You could just put it in a box and ship it?
Yeah, I mean, I think steps before that is you do have to in Kansas you have to be licensed and you can't do it from home. In North Carolina you can bake from home. But there you had to be at a commercial kitchen facility. So the commercial kitchen facility that I used there was the nicest I've been. I'm on my third kitchen now, but nicest one, creme de la creme, like very, very good. The people that were over it, it was ran by K State, which is the university out in Kansas. So they had the money to put into it, but it was ran so well. I'm like, oh, I'm spoiled.
Okay. Did you
Come,
pick up a lot of game from being in that kitchen?
no, because that kitchen. So the thing is, with Kansas, it's a slower pace of a city.
Okay.
Kansas City is a little slower pace. So the farmers market that I was a part of, it was an amazing farmers market. The lady that was over it, very type A. She did not play. If you couldn't be there, she like made you feel bad if you weren't there. Like it was a big deal to her. Like she did not want any spots that looked
No empty
empty.
tables.
She was not playing. So that was they had awards for the market. They like won like the best farmers market. Like they were a really great market and the people there really loved having a vegan option. They were like eating it up, quite literally and figuratively, because for them there weren't a lot of
Yeah.
options. So the love there, it was different, and I feel like it was because part of it was like a lot of people weren't even vegan for real,
Mhm.
but they were open to it and they were like, man, this is good, and so they would eat it and they enjoyed it. So it was different there because it was a much smaller scale. I was very much just starting out. So it was a different type of scene because I wasn't doing any local pickups or doing cakes the way I'm doing now. So I had a different business model at the time, but that was mostly because I really didn't want to get too comfortable in Kansas because I knew I wasn't staying there. So that was
Okay.
part of my reasoning for not really being as immersed because like I'm not living here.
When did you decide to make the transition from Kansas to Charlotte for the business?
Well, I think for me, always knew I didn't want to stay in Kansas, but I think like actually making it happen, I just had a moment like for me, like for personally, my own like life and for business, I just felt like you got to go to grow. And for me, like most of my friends, like I said, they weren't in Kansas. So I was like, what are we doing? You know, like there's nothing here. And I felt like there's just more opportunity if I left because Charlotte had more going on. And then also Charlotte wasn't a complete restart just because of family friends that I have here.
Okay.
So it wasn't like I was in a city where I didn't know absolutely no one. But at the time, the vegan scene was, on the up and up. It's dwindled quite a bit since out here, but it was still a big opportunity just because you don't see, a dedicated like vegan dessert
Mhm.
source. And like I said, for my own personal life, I'm like, this is not where I want to plant roots. This is not where I see myself as an adult. Like I need a happy medium between New
Okay.
York and this. But
Okay.
Kansas is not it.
So how'd you make the transition? Did you just pack up and did you call the movers again? I was like, "Hey, we're moving."
Pretty much. Yeah. Packed up, got everything. We had to figure out the whole kitchen situation, of course. But yeah, at the time, I had secured a part time. So I was able to transfer
What was the part-time job?
the Container Store,
Okay. What were
which
you
was
doing at the
cool.
Container Store?
Girl, not not anything crazy for real. I mean, it's probably the chillest retail job I've ever had.
Okay.
Most of them suck because I feel like they weren't clothing. You didn't deal with having to fold, but it was pretty chill. I mean, I would say I think they recently like filed for bankruptcy. So the
Yikes.
only thing that sucked was like getting more hours. Like that wasn't happening. So that was frustrating. But I was like, it was a chill place for retail. And honestly, it was the only job that I had after my full time.
Really?
Yeah, like when I say I couldn't get a job anywhere else, like we tried Sam's Club. They said no. I'm like, okay, well I like Costco better anyway. Since y'all wanted to do me like that. But yeah, it was rough. Like between the time of like the job loss up until about like 2021, I think like March 2021, that's when they hired me. But
The Container
I
Store.
did not have anything in
Container Store
between.
is pricey. I'm not surprised they filed for a bank because it's a
Yeah,
very niche market that's gonna go and pay $30 for one container.
yeah, it is very much so. But now they're competing against Amazon.
Yeah.
Target's gotten more stuff now. So it's different now.
So did you got transferred to a Container Store in Charlotte?
I did. So I worked when I moved, I worked at the Charlotte location. And so but when I came to the Charlotte location, I didn't really work in the sales floor as much. I kind of did more of the morning truck delivery, which sucks because it was so much labor and it was like 5 o'clock in the morning. And I was like, I'm already doing enough baking.
So what did your time commitments look like of like I got a little hustle to help pay the bills, I'm working at a Container
Barely.
Store, and then I'm running a vegan
Mm-hmm.
baked goods business. What was your schedule like on a regular day?
So when I first came out here and the kitchen that I was at, it wasn't like where I was before. There was a lot more action at this kitchen. Very busy, some clients, you've outgrown the space and you need to go. But the Container Store, the only time the truck came was on a Monday. So I was technically only working 1 day a week, and that's only because I tried to do the Sunday, but what happened was in order for me to stay at the farmers market and not be outside, they put the new vendors outside. The farmers market here, the only way I could get inside was if I committed to doing Saturday and Sunday. So
Mm.
I had to give up my second day on Sunday of working to be at the farmers market.
So you could only be on the books for on the shift schedule for 1 day a week.
Pretty much, yeah. Yeah, because it was too hard with like at the time I feel like I was over accommodating like my pickup times, like trying to do it midday for people and I had such open availability for pickups and stuff like that. So that was part of the reason why I wasn't really working like that because I was
Okay.
like, let me be available for
For
these
my business.
pickups. Yeah, exactly. So,
Okay, how did you find a kitchen?
the kitchen, I think we just did some research prior to moving. I want to say the booking app that was used to book time and schedule, they have resources of different places by city and stuff like that. And so I believe that's how I stumbled across it. I really don't remember it now that I think about it, but they had several locations. And so the one that I was in appealed to me the most just because it was probably the cleanest.
Okay. You
Mhm.
said we. Did any family or
Oh, my
friends move with you?
parents. Well, no, no, no. When I say we, I mean like the help involved in terms of like making it happen was my parents. And so they didn't move with me.
So how'd you get your first customer in Charlotte? You've now moved to a different state. How did you get a following and an audience here in the city?
The farmers market. That was like one of the ways, consistent ways I would say, I was able to really introduce the business. Pop-ups, I've really cut back on those just because they're usually a bust. You pay so much upfront and the return may not be there. So the pop-ups, I'm good on those. They're too expensive. But the farmers market was where you become part of people's like routine on the
Hmm.
weekend. So they expect to see you there. So that was some of it, I would say. And then on top of that, I would say word of mouth as well because that's you may not know where I'm at on the farmers market, but maybe you tried it, someone gave you a slice or whatever. And the other thing we also did, we invested in SEO marketing.
Hmm.
So the person that did like some back end stuff on my website really helped to make the business searchable on Google to where as a vegan bakery it was like popping up at the top of people's search list. So that was really helpful too.
Okay.
Mhm.
How'd you find out or get in touch with the farmers market? Because the farmers market that you're at is like
Mhm.
that's the Charlotte regional farmer, so it's
Mhm.
the largest one in the city.
Yeah, prior to coming, research once again. And so visiting, I remember being like, man, these buildings, that's clutch. Because in Kansas, I was outside. You had to bring a tent. We're out in the elements. You know, it was rough. The sun, I had the worst farmer's tan in my life. It took forever to go away. So for me, when I came here and I said, ooh, you don't have to bring a tent. You just have your stuff here. You just pull up. That's easy. So for me, that one made the most sense because I don't know anywhere else where it's covered the way
Yeah.
it is. And it's real good because like today it was kind of raining. People still came. So that's
Yeah.
the thing is like having some form of shelter really makes a difference. Having electricity, little things like that, it just made sense. And it was so easy to get into as well at the
Really?
time. I think now it's
I
a
would
little
say I know
different.
people who can't get it. It's pretty
Yeah,
competitive.
yeah, no. Now I think it's filled up since then. The timing was impeccable. And I know a lady that is across from me now, she was like, you gotta get inside. She's a vegan butcher. I know it's funny, a butcher, but her stuff is on point. But she's like, you gotta get inside. She's like, you're not gonna want to be out there like when it's like 90 degrees in the summer. I'm like, you're
Mm,
right. Let me get inside.
that's
So,
fair.
mm-hmm.
A lot of times when small business owners go into business, they actually don't know how to run a business. They know how to do the thing they love. They know how to bake. They know how to train people. They know how to sew. How did you figure out all the profit margin, the understanding your audience, all the other business concepts that you didn't
Mm-hmm.
sign up for? How did you learn those?
We're still learning, to be honest. I think for me, because I am creative, all that admin, analytical, like the important stuff, I hate sewing, but I'd rather go sew than do that. And for me, it's more challenging for me because I'm like, it's such a learning curve that it just takes me longer to do those things. But something that's been really instrumental is through the Small Business Association. They have SCORE mentors. And so they pair you with someone based on like the specific needs that you have. And so that has been really instrumental. We've been working together like I want to say maybe like 2 years now.
Okay.
And he's really like he's the most honest person, like brutally honest. Like
Okay.
this man, I mean, there were a few times I'm like, ooh, he done struck a nerve a little bit. But when I say like he's gotten me into shape, he really has because I'm like, that's not a natural gift for
What are some
me.
of the things that he's kind of helped teach you?
Well, for one, an Excel sheet.
Okay.
I ain't trying to do no
They didn't
Excel.
teach Excel in
We
fashion
we, we
marketing.
weren't doing what he has me doing, you know? So that's for one, but really just like getting things in places like systematically, you know, the creativity is there, but if your operations aren't in place, the chances for it to grow is just very, very slim. And so he's also brought other ways to make money, like pushing wholesale, you know, considering, you know, selling coffee and stuff like that. So he's brought, you know, other ideas that maybe I didn't think of, or you know, I wasn't ever wanting to do. So his suggestions in that manner have been good. And then just a general like just honest perspective that's not related to you in any way also, cuz he's just going to give you that real deal.
Like a business therapist.
Yeah, yeah, and he
Okay.
be yeah, he's
So
no
do you
joke.
do the admin task yourself now, or do you have to
Mhm.
outsource?
I still do most of it. My mom, she'll do my books for me. Everything else is kind of on me. It is,
That's tough.
unfortunately. Yeah, it is. It's a lot of hats. I be over it
That's tough. That's tough.
every
And
day.
people don't talk about the grind and the glory of entrepreneurship. Everyone is excited that you have your own business, but it gets tough. The way it gets tough, and you don't actually get to tell people that because that's not cute. That's not sexy. It actually doesn't even do the business
Mm-mm.
well.
Mm-mm.
It's not good marketing to talk
Mm-mm.
about how difficult it is. And
Mm-mm.
so I'll ask,
Mhm.
how would you say your relationships have been impacted? You've now moved away from your friends,
Mhm.
started over a couple times. What does that look like being an entrepreneurship and having to establish relationships?
I think it's more challenging now in terms of just being able to connect with people in a way that they like understand where you're coming from. Especially like the late 20s is a weird time because it's like people are moving on in ways that, you know, you can't really keep up with. Everyone's on their own kind of timing. So, I feel like establishing friends is a little challenging, especially if you're in an environment where it kind of is just you and you're not in an office setting, or you know you don't have employees just yet, or wherever the case may be. So I feel like it feels a bit challenging in a lot of regards. It's like, where do you meet people where they kind of get it, but at the same time, even though I said like, oh, I want more entrepreneur friends, I realize I'm like, they're actually too busy. I'm like, we're getting booked out on your calendar like months in advance.
Yeah.
Like, you know, so I'm like,
Brunch is not happening until a couple
nope,
months from now.
nope. So I'm like, you know, they'd be a little too busy for me. But I think that in terms of people that I've known from childhood, I think you get a dynamic of like those that really support you and are like so happy to see you thrive. And then others who I just saw something on Instagram today and it was like, people that they're watching your stories, but they're not saying anything, but they're not unfollowing because they just want to be nosy. And I'm like, I feel like I get a lot of that too.
Mm.
So I'm not worried about it. I'm like, you know, if I don't know what you're hating on, because if you saw what I was like really dealing with, you would not feel any
You
sort
would
of
not envy
jealousy.
this.
Not at all.
You would not envy this.
Yeah. And I think on top of like when you talk about the things people don't talk about, I think the biggest thing that I discovered that's not talked about is really the mental tenacity that's required. And
Mm.
that's something that I really struggle with. Is just like staying in it mentally. Like that is what's hard.
Have you ever considered quitting?
Oh, yes. Every day.
Every day?
Very often. Very
Okay.
often. Mainly because I feel like baking, food in general is a lot of labor. And I just was like, where's my soft life? I envisioned something different for myself. And like I've never been like a physical laborer. Like that is just not my ministry. And now I'm like, ooh, this is what we do. Bags of 50 pounds, flour, sugar, you know, those bulk bags, huge. And I'm like, I didn't sign up for this. So it's a lot. Like I'm standing on my feet, the wrists are getting worked.
It's not fashion.
It's not fashion. Not fashion by any means. So for me, I'm like, this is more than I anticipated.
Do you still do the Container Store?
No, I left that.
Why'd you leave?
I was tired. It was too physically demanding.
Okay.
I'm up in the morning at 5 a.m. lifting stuff, and on top of that, like,
I gotta go lift a flower
yeah, so I'm
too.
like, it was too much. I'm like, and they were really really short staffed. And I'm like, I'm tired of this. Y'all putting us through a lot.
Okay, so what keeps you going to pursue your vegan baked goods?
I think a few things. I think for one, I feel like there's a huge opportunity for people who can't have eggs, can't have milk. I think being a part of their special moments is really important to me. And just the fact that I get to be the one to know when someone's having a boy or a girl for their baby gender reveal cake.
Aw,
You know what I'm saying? Like, that's a
yeah,
huge honor. Like, I know before
yeah.
you do, you know? So I feel like that is like what is at the forefront. And then on top of that, I feel like when I think about the signs leading up to this, I'm like, I don't believe that, I'm making a mistake by any means. Like, I feel like, it's part of a bigger picture for sure, but I also feel like this is definitely something that if I didn't have this dairy intolerance, how would the business that I have, like, how would it be unique? I don't think it would really be one of a kind in that way if it wasn't for my own personal, like, inability to tolerate dairy. So I feel like those are two of the main reasons. But then the third is, I'm looking at this bank account, honey. We have to get creative. The job market, I've not had a full time job since 2020. So for me, it's like, how else are we getting the bread?
Are you still looking for
Absolutely.
Okay,
Girl, I didn't applied to a good one.
okay,
Government job.
okay.
Government. So we gonna see.
Okay, would
Mm-hmm.
you do the full-time job and still pursue your vegan baked goods?
Absolutely. I'm gonna be the big 3-0 this year.
Okay,
So financial stability is like that's all I care about this year.
okay.
It's
So you
really
wanna do both,
important.
be an entrepreneur a side hustler?
I need it because for me it wasn't like coming into entrepreneurship. You get a lot of people that quit their job
Yeah.
and they're like, "Oh, I'm going to pursue my passion." I lost mine.
Mm.
I wanted to work. I always wanted to work. I never wanted to just let's just have this free time and
Bake.
yeah, I that was not what I wanted to do. I wanted to work. I was looking
I didn't wanna lift,
actively.
but I wanted to work.
Okay, yeah. So I was like, no, like I miss the stability. I lay my head on my pillow. I ain't gotta worry about when the money's coming.
Yeah,
No
health
strategizing.
insurance,
Yeah. So it's like it was just like that peace of mind. So I was like, I always wanted to continue working. So for me, it's just having that stability so that way you can still not be burnt out like
mhm.
in your passion, but you can have, okay, bills are taken care of, we can continue to stack and work on the business, but it just gives more balance.
Yeah.
It's still hectic for sure, it will be, but it just gives more balance. It's been hard trying to just pursue entrepreneurship and like that be your main thing because I feel like when you're building a Jenga tower, you can't pull out and build at the same time. So that's what makes it just makes it a little bit harder to kind of get to where I need to. I mean, everyone's business is a little different. I think if you have a partner in the business, that makes it easier. I think if you have the ability to have staff and all that, that makes it easier. But I think it just depends on what you do. But I'm like, baked goods as a margin, I don't think it's nearly as high as like other fields. So that's where I'm like, it is what it is. This is my journey. It's unique to me. Like my calling was my calling. It wasn't meant to make sense to others. So I'm kind of in a place where it doesn't make sense to me. So I know it's not gonna make sense to you.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
that's just what it is.
Okay. So you just went through a rebrand. What
Mm-hmm.
inspired you changing the name and the brand identity?
It was something I had been thinking about for quite some time, since last year, and I know I got a lot of pushback from my family. And I think like I told like one of my former friends from college. But I was like, I don't think y'all understand. Like, to me, I just want something simple and to the point. And I felt like people were either stuttering over the name, couldn't pronounce it. And then I also feel like for me, entrepreneurship has been so humbling. I'm like, I don't even want the connotation of bougie. Like,
Mm.
I've outgrown that. Like, it wasn't a good name anyway, if I'm being honest. And the way people have responded to the new name, I'm like, so y'all didn't want to tell me how you really felt? But like honestly, like it's been such a really positive response. And I wasn't at a place where the business was so big to where it really confused people. Like it's still in a good state to where it's still growing, but it's not giving confusion. So Yeah.
If you were to look at the business when you first started and where it is today, you've been doing this 4 years. How have you seen the business grow revenue wise?
Oh, every year there's been increase.
We love that.
And that's great because it's just me really doing a lot of it. So you can only imagine with additional support and help where that can go. Cause that's huge. Now, if it wasn't doing anything, then that wouldn't show that there's potential. But I think that each year at the farmers market so far, new people are discovering me, some are coming back, so I think for me, these are all good steps in the right direction. It just takes time.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it definitely takes a lot of time.
Yeah.
You mentioned your parents, you mentioned your aunt a lot. What influences have they played in your entrepreneurship journey?
For one, I think my parents are super supportive. I feel like me and my siblings have very untraditional paths, but I feel like they've been supportive of that because it's not like they had typical like corporate jobs in that way or
What do your
anything.
siblings do for their
So
non-traditional path?
one of my brothers, he helps with they set up like the main events for like festivals or if like he lives in Nashville, so if NASCAR Hall of Fame, they
Oh,
set that up. They do like the digital boards and stuff. So he does stuff related to that. And then the baby, my youngest brother, he plays professional basketball. So
okay.
he's overseas playing basketball. So none of us had this like typical, nurse, accountant type of field. We kind of, if we wanted to be astronauts, my parents would have found a way. Like, who do we know? My dad is really well connected. Like, he knows a lot of people. So it's like, he just, he's just very relational. So it's like, if you need to talk to someone in some field, he'll find a way.
Okay. And your mom's going to research it.
She's gonna research. She's gonna research, and he's gonna connect. Like that's how they do it.
How would you define a side hustler?
A side hustler. I feel like a side hustler is someone willing to get it by any means necessary, and I think it's in the hopes that it becomes the main thing. So in the meantime, like we're gonna do what we gotta do so it can become our main thing, and then once we build that, we go on to the next.
Mm,
The hustle never stops.
hustle never stops.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, I love that. So in the spirit of this being a diary, there is an actual diary
Mm-hmm.
which you have already written in.
Mm-hmm.
And because it's sacred, I will ask for you to read it
Okay.
if that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So you had a prompt. Can
Mm-hmm.
you tell us what your prompt was?
My prompt is write about a time you felt alone.
Mm.
Yeah,
You don't
yeah.
have to share the whole thing. You can give a piece if
I
you want.
mean, I'm gonna keep it real.
Okay,
We gonna
yeah,
share that
for
real
sure.
deal. I'm honest Hannah. Okay. So I said the current state of my life is the loneliest I've ever felt. Being an entrepreneur has been isolating, and I feel misunderstood by so many people. I miss the camaraderie of coworkers, the after-work functions, and the balanced corporate life brought. Being in my late 20s, there's a dynamic shift that occurred in my childhood relationships, and the relatability within each other's lives has changed. Some are climbing the corporate ladder, some are settling down with significant others, starting families, and some are making big life purchases. I'm on the journey of rebuilding my life while others are doing things that I'm not. I'm happy for them, but I'd be lying if I said a part of me didn't want some of the things that are happening in their lives too.